AntDesign. So not only are you building something that's solid and that works with existing libraries like React Router and Redux, it handles that really, really well. But it also handles design because it comes with a color palette out of the box. It comes with very customizable elements out of the box, sensible designs, and it's a very, very good library to basically kickstart your application. It officially works with React. It has community options for Angular and Vue. So there's ng-zoro, which is the Angular Vue, and then there's Vue, and then there's also the Vue version of AntDesign. Did I say Angular version of Vue? ng-zoro is the Angular version of AntDesign, and there's also the Vue version of AntDesign. And it's a safe bet for many applications. It's relatively free of bugs, and it's relatively free of issues. It's very well supported, so it's a better option, for example, than Material Design or Material UI because it comes with more components, and it's more supported because it has such a massive corporation backing it. So features, there's so many features. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through the documentation and I'm going to show you guys what this thing can do. So I'm going to step back here, getting started. So here's AntDesign. And immediately you can see that's a very beautifully laid out website. I always like seeing a very featureful website when it comes to picking a library. Because that just tells me that there's a lot more happening here than what I need, which means that's great because there's always more that I can use. So it's there's so much going on. I mean, let's walk through it slowly. Um, you have a bunch of articles already that shows you how to use AntDesign. They have a design values guide, which gives a lot of cohesiveness to AntDesign. There's certainly a lot of certainty and meaningfulness inside AntDesign. It is built to grow, and it does feel natural. More details, especially if you're a designer, inside design values. You have guidelines for global styles. You have guidelines for design patterns, which is amazing because it teaches you how to build an AntDesign application. And it also has all these different components for all these different target frameworks. You have AntV, which is visualization. I believe that might be either freemium or premium, so you might have to pay for that one. There's AntDesign Pro, which is premium, so you can pay more for more features. There's AntDesign Mobile. There's Haiku, there's Kitchen, there's icons. There's a lot going on here, and it all works really well together. So it's a really, really interesting offering coming from Ant Financial. And if you look in the footer, you'll see a lot more stuff over here as well. You get links to their Stack Overflows. They have chat rooms in both Chinese and in English. Um, and it's overall, you can go to their GitHub. There's a lot going on. Let's walk into the documentation. And I'm going to skip the design section because this is primarily a chat meant for software developers, but the design section is interesting too. I'll just quickly open it up. There's a lot over here: design values, patterns, visualizations, illustrations, design resources, sketch toolbox. There's a lot going on over here, and you can go in there and you can take a look at it. Inside the documentation, you have everything you need. So quickly going over the features, it has an according to the website itself, coming from the horse's mouth, enterprise class UI designed for web applications. So this is the big one. AntDesign, I didn't mention this before, but AntDesign is actually built for web applications, not just websites. Massive difference. Material, for example, is built for websites. You can build a web application with Material. It doesn't feel right. Bootstrap is made for websites. You can build a web application with Bootstrap. Again, doesn't feel right. But AntDesign, I remember the first real component system that I really liked for building an entire web application instead of just a simple website. So um, It has a set of high quality React components out of the box. It's written in TypeScript, so you have static typing. If you're using TypeScript, it's compatible with TypeScript. It has the whole package of design resources and development tools. You can go into the resources and take a look at those. It has internationalization. It comes with little internationalized components out of the box. So you don't have to internationalize every single part of your application, only the stuff that you write. And it has support for dozens of languages right out of the box. It has a very good theme customization features as well, which I can attest to. In terms of environment support, IE 11 and Edge, and they support the last two versions of all the major browsers and Electron as well. So again, very solid choice. Might need to use a polyfill for Internet Explorer. So in order, if you want to install this, all you have to do is yarn add AntD, and then you can go in and you can start using the application. So as soon as you install it, you can just do import date picker from AntD. Now, I will say though that AntDesign is really, really large, and what you want to really do is modularize it and let your bundler do what's called tree shaking. Tree shaking is when your application, your Webpack goes through your application and only uses those parts of libraries that are used by your application. So AntDesign is really big, so it's an elephant. But because it supports tree shaking, your bundler should theoretically be able to just use the parts that include the parts that you're actually using instead of every single damn thing. So that's if you've never heard about tree shaking before, you should totally look it up. It's really cool. It's a way to minimize your bundle based on what you're using rather than on what you're importing. So it slims down what you're importing by just picking and choosing what you're using based on import statements. A bunch of links over here. There's a scaffold market, for example, where you can buy scaffolds or get scaffolds. Here's a bunch of companies using AntDesign. So Ant Financial uses it, Alibaba uses it, Tencent uses it, Baidu, Kobe, Meituan, Didi, LM. I haven't even heard of many of these. I've heard of the first four. I haven't heard of the last four. And yeah, so that's an overall view of AntDesign. Let's get into getting started. You can go into install and initialization. So you do yarn create react. You just do yarn create react app and demo, and that'll start you up. A very quick way to get started is just run this command. Another quick way to get started is npx create react app and demo, depending on whether you're using yarn or npm. Then you just cd into ant demo and you do yarn start. So let's do this together. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually run this command. And now it's going to create the ant demo application. Yes, downloading all the dependencies. It's created it. And I believe it's now actually installing the dependencies for me. Yarn is really good because I find that it's much faster than NPM and it caches. There was a time when Yarn was absolutely faster than NPM because NPM didn't support parallel downloads. Although now I believe that's no longer true. Um, Yarn, although Yarn still does the caching a lot better than NPM. So if you guys haven't used Yarn yet, it's by Facebook. It's an alternate package manager that still works with the NPM repository, but instead of using the NPM CLI tool, you use Yarn, and Yarn is able to do things a lot faster, I find, on your local machine. So there you go. I'm going to cd into AntD demo, and I'm going to do yarn start. Yeah, I'll run it on another port. Why not? There we go. And starting the development server. We'll wait for it here. You know, it's a crazy world when you think about what's happening over here. You're taking JavaScript, which is already very high level, and then you're going in and just creating a brand new application from scratch um, uh, by compiling. Well, you're compiling JavaScript to JavaScript, which is what's happening when you use TypeScript, which is a little crazy to me because I'm used to the concept of compiling, C to assembly, or C++ to assembly, or Java to bytecode. And then you think about what JavaScript does for you, which is compiling TypeScript to JavaScript. That just seems upside down because why would you want to compile to JavaScript? But that's done. And I'm going to go into docs. I'm going to go into getting started. I lost my spot, install initialization in here. And then at this point, all we do is yarn add anti, and it's going to get added. And then I'm going to start adding buttons in here according to this little tutorial. Just to, I'm going to show you guys how to essentially build an AntDesign application from scratch, so you guys don't wonder how I got to the how the project got to the point where the project got. Um, so I'm going to go in there. I'm going to go into source app. So while that install is happening, I'm going to open this up in VS Code. And VS Code, you guys should be familiar with this. A lot of you will be familiar with this. So I'm not going to go into React itself because Ant is built on React, but I'm going to show you what you can do. Is um, you can take that app.js and you can import. All I did so far was import button from AntDesign, and I'm going to add that button as per documentation into here, and I'm going to then, well, I'm waiting for this thing to get started and to get done. And this is what I mean. Ant is extremely, extremely thick. It's very big, and it's very big for a reason, right? It gives you a lot out of the box. I haven't even gone into the component library yet, but it just goes. It's a very comprehensive framework. It makes me feel very secure as a developer. It tells me that every time I use Ant, it's like, okay, yeah, I know I'm covered. I know the edge cases are going to be covered too. It's not a very it's not one of those libraries that's going to flake out on you at the last minute because it's not mature enough or doesn't have backing. No, it's a pretty solid library. So I am waiting for the development server to get started. This is what I mean. Why are we compiling JavaScript to JavaScript? I don't know, but it just goes to show that JavaScript is it's a crazy world. A lot of developers coming in from Java, for example, or C++ or other languages, they look at it and they scoff because it is a little nuts. I'll admit it's a little nuts, especially with the node module situation where you have a galaxy of node modules. It's just really, really, really nuts. Um, what we have to go through as JavaScript developers. But there you go. So you have a little button over here, although um, that's essentially the button type coming in from AntDesign. Very simple. I know it's an underwhelming example, but wait until I get to the actual example. So that's how you get started with AntDesign. You just import it, you drop it in, and you're good to go. Now, I'm going to go over to the actual component library, and I'm going to show you guys what the component library looks like and what it does. Um, Pay close attention to the left-hand side over here. and you're going to see all the different components that are available to you. Like this is absolutely crazy. For example, you have something as complicated as a tree select. You have all the standard stuff. I mean, you're obviously used to that, but some of the selections over here are really nice. So I'm going to go into tree select, and tree select is one of those really impressive things that just out of the box, it just impresses people. Tree select has essentially it you can choose one of many different items. So um, tree select is similar to, I think it's loading. There we go. So here's tree select. Like, isn't that crazy? That's awesome. And then I can even do this, and I can unselect it, select it, select all. If I just select node 2, then all the child nodes also get selected, and that is pretty massive. I remember having to implement this many years ago in React, and they didn't have AntDesign back then, and it was just so painful to implement a tree select and AntDesign. It was just without AntDesign, it was just really, really hard. But AntDesign just gives it to you out of the box, and you can even take a look at the source code over here. Here's the tree data. So you have an array, which is how you would normally pass data into React. You have node 1, which has one child, which is child node 1. You have node 2, which has one child, which has 3 children. And then you have on change equals, and then it's just very much standard React. Here are the props that are going in. Um, and here's the state value. Here's the tree data that's going in, and then you just drop it into the tree select component. That tree select component is coming right down from AntDesign. Little note over here on some people don't know, but you can actually pass in props like this. Um, so you can actually just drop those props into your component like so you don't have to muddy up your component declaration. You can just declare your props separately and then drop them in using the triple dot operator over here, the spread operator. So that's tree select. What else is cool? What else is cool? Let's see. We can take a look at tree, although it'll be probably a little less. You know what? Let's take a look at calendar. So here's tree. It's kind of like tree select. Nothing new here, but let's take a look at calendar. So calendar has a full calendar. You can switch from months to year. You can switch the months. You can switch the years. Um, and it's really, really awesome. Here are some actual events inside AntDesign. Here's a calendar, another calendar. There's just a lot in here that you can use. And here's a mini calendar, a customized calendar header. Um, and the API is really simple. So calendar, date cell render, month cell render, on panel change, on select. Um, and it's also internationalizable. So the default locale is ENUS. If you want to use another locale, you just set the locale in the entry file globally, like so. And it works with Moment.js. There's other items in here as well. It gives you alerts out of the box. There are progress bars. There are pop confirm. I mean, I can just keep going, right? Like there's a ton that this library comes with. Upload components, transfer, time picker, tree select. It just goes on and on and on. For 95% of use cases, you don't even have to look anywhere else. This AntDesign framework just has pretty much everything: breadcrumbs, menus, drop downs, the works. And it's totally awesome. It's very much recommended for by me. I think AntDesign is really great for anybody who wants to. And if you're interested in AntDesign, you should come and attend the Monday hackathon. On Monday, we're going to be building applications using AntDesign, and that's going to be a ton of fun. You can come in here, and you can come in here and you can talk about you can come and see AntDesign in action. You can work with AntDesign. on the Monday hackathon. How Mintbean hackathons work, for those of you who are new, we have an afternoon format, which is you start at 11:30. That's when the social mixer begins, and then we start hacking at about 12:30, get done by about 4:30, some more networking, and then and then we have the closing ceremony with the winner announcements. So it happens every Monday and Wednesday. This Monday we're going to have an AntDesign hackathon. If you go over to Eventbrite, and if you just search for Mintbean, you will find the hackathon probably immediately. I'm just going to wait for this thing to load because the internet is a mainframe, and I feel like I'm stuck in the 70s. If I kept doing that, you'd get annoyed. So I'm not going to keep going. So if you just go here and if you look for Mintbean, you'll find all the upcoming events right on Eventbrite. Very, very easy to find. You can also find our events on Hopin. The Ant Designathon happens on August 17th. It's this one over here. I will drop a link, and this is essentially a JavaScript hackathon where we're all going to um, build and design applications together. And that's really why we're having these workshops in the first place, is to make people familiar with the libraries that we're going to be using in order to, inside the hackathon itself. So you can go over here. Anybody can attend. Front-end developers, full-stack developers, self-learners, job seekers, anybody who wants to code can come and attend. This one is on Monday, August 17th. Starts at 11:30 EST. That is 8:30 a.m. Pacific, although you can probably come in at about 9, and that's going to be fine too if you're in Pacific time. You can find the agenda and everything else over here. So I'm going to drop this inside Hopin, and I'm going to click on events, and here's the registration for Monday's AntDesign hackathon. So coming back to AntDesign, so I have this very basic application that I built. I'm now going to show you guys a more full-fledged application to give you guys more of a taste of what AntDesign can do. And I've uh, I've actually taken Leonardo Plinsky's application. You can find this application at this GitHub, um, which I should probably link to. I'll drop a link later towards the end in the interest of time. But I'm going to walk you guys through this application. And I have this already open inside my VS Code. That's React and to do. Here we go. It's a to-do application. Pretty straightforward. And here it is loading. And again, we have to wait for, oh, I already have it running somewhere. Okay, there it is. So here's the to-do application. Very standard to do. There's a list on the bottom. There's a field over here that says, okay, what do you want to do? And then you can click add to do. If it doesn't have anything in here, then it'll pop up with red and say this field is required. So I'm gonna say I need to show the audience the code for this project. And I press enter and it gets added. And then after that, I need to remind them that there is a Redwood JS MasterClass right after this one. Enter, that gets added. And you can see the nice little toasts are being added over here as well. If I refresh, then this application actually saves everything to local storage. And that way I don't lose my to-do list, at least on my local machine. If I click on this little toggle over here, it toggles between done and not done. And as you can see, it changes the color over here as well. Really spiffy. And then I can press X and it asks me, are you sure you want to delete? And it looks really nice. Like I love this little pop-up. It's not a full screen modal. It's just a little pop-up right above the X. I can say okay, and it's gone, and I have another item up here. One thing you'll notice is that there's an unused pagination bar. So all lists come with this pagination bar, and you can use that pagination bar to page through many different elements. So test, it's not in use over here, but if I keep adding more, then if I know that my user is going to have tons and tons of to-dos, then I can actually add pagination over here. Um, and yeah, I just like playing with this thing. Like even when I hover over it, it says, mark is uncompleted, mark is completed. So it tells me what that button is going to do. Those micro interactions make UX really, really nice. It's a really solid tool in your tool belt, and it's a very quick way to impress people with how much you can do in a short period of time. Um, I'm going to go into the code now. And here's the code. Is it too small? I just want to know, is it too small for people? Um, is the code just very small when people see it on my screen, or is it big enough? What do you guys think? Just before I hop into the code. Hmm. Okay, I'm going to assume it's good. If it's not good, I'll check back in 2 minutes. If nobody says anything, I'm going to assume it's good. So walking back into the code, here's the code for AntDesign. So there's the persist gate. Well, that's its persistence hash router. So this is I'm inside index.js, or rather index.tsx, and this is where my router is. And this should be relatively familiar to you guys. There isn't any ant design over here. It's mostly just Redux. And if I go into routes, if I step into routes, then there's only one route, and that has the to-dos container. And now we finally step into something that's more related to ant design. These calls are ant design columns, and they're responsive, and you can specify how wide these columns should be inside